Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. Welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Owl Bob. I am he, your griot, here to tell your story. And this is a live chat. You it works best when you guys take part. Earlier, I showed a little bit of what the media has. You have to realize the media is propaganda. And a guy named Gary Allen, a good bud, we were students of Dr. Quigley at the CFR. He wrote a great book called None Dare Call It Conspiracy. Because conspiracy is supposed to be hidden, and this is all happening right in front of your face. So I played a little bit of Jon Stewart, and he is what is known as a loyal opposition. They're paying him a lot of money to just make fun of everything, right? And none of these guys ever get to the point that they're telling you, hey, you're totally screwed, right? Because of this, I started out with that little animation of the guy getting his house repossessed from the loan that he had. And you have to realize, if you buy a house with a mortgage that you can't afford, you're going to lose that house. And most of the people who are homeless have gone through a economic debacle of sorts, right? They overextended themselves on credit, which the banks really didn't have the money. So what they do is they make money by lending bad loans so they can then repossess assets which have a value. Money is worthless. Assets have a real value, right? And that's what Herr Goebbels Rothschild understands, because he has purchased, his family has anyway, the whole friggin' world through never-ending war. You have to realize that the banks are the number one agent of war. And why in America does more than half of the citizens have no real health care? They may have an insurance policy, but it's worthless, because it doesn't keep them healthy. Now, my HMO, which is a nonprofit entity, it was bought out by the guy who started it, because after COVID, he just couldn't take it anymore. And he retired and went to Pago Pago. They gave him an offer he couldn't refuse. And a large transnational corporation has been buying up hospitals, nonprofit hospitals, all around the country. And they're laundering money through them, right? But not giving health care. So I need simple things like orthopedic shoes. They don't want to give them to me, because maybe I'll need operation, like, a new knees or new hips or none of it. But if I had just, a pair of orthopedic shoes that everything could line up right, I could walk straight, right? But I can't. And luckily I have neuropathy, right? I can't feel anything. So the doctor says, oh, I can't tell whether you have neuropathy. So, well, you take a little toothpick and you poke my leg, and no, I have to send you to a specialist. I can't see the specialist until July. I've been trying to get these shoes for 6 months, and I am just a metaphor of what's going on. But I basically say, why am I sitting here talking to you? Because my buddy, whose house I'm at, his vehicle that I drove here, his beater, it just doesn't want to start. It's the Godmobile. It got me here, got me to church, then got me from church to here. And I talked to a little bit after taking a shower. I haven't taken a shower since March, February. When was it really cold? January, February. That's the last shower I took. Right? Because my equilibrium, my homeostasis, my metabolic metabolism, and my endocrinology, I don't know what tense you put that in, but I'm chemically, hormonally doing pretty well. That's why I don't stink. So I don't eat a lot of crap, right? Because I have no money. And I try only eat fresh stuff, leaf and vegetables. And, again, the silver lining of being, for me anyway, without cash, um, I it does well by me. So I purchased my little, to be in legal poverty, you can only own one piece of property and one vehicle. I don't even have the vehicle anymore, right? And I'm trying to put my property into a nonprofit entity. I'm trying to get the young folk of the church interested in owning it themselves in a nonprofit form. And I said, listen, I'll teach you how to write grants. I'll teach you to put this in a 501c3. I'll teach you how, a lot of stuff, right? And this can be yours, right? And you can build a community around it and give a sense of quality in your life, because you're doing outside of, going on TikTok and watching TV. So, and they're going, oh, they might do it. They're really pretty good kids and they're smart. And, I'm trying to offer them something. But, the real interesting thing is whenever there is, God does not give us anything that we can't handle. And so, see, the thing is that people want to, anthropomorphize God. No, because the God that's in the Bible, the God that people talk about, the God, basically, they're all the same God, whether you're Christian, Jewish, Muslim, Buddhist, and they don't even have a God. They believe in a higher power. And pretty much all religion, especially religion is a business plan, theology is a philosophy on existence. And so, what is your philosophy on existence? Mine is homeostasis, to be in balance. No matter what conflict is going on around me, I basically look to stay in balance, because that's a form within side of martial arts, within side of qigong or tai chi. It's all about balance, right? And every time I stop, breathe, and put myself in balance, it basically, is there. So, um, so it'd be great if more watch this. It'd be great if we could build the viewership, subscribe, get people to subscribe. It seemed, I almost got to 1,000 one time, and now it's down to, 5, whatever it is. I never seem to be able to get about 550. And I know more than that watching, right? Just by the fact that 100 or so people have gotten a hold of me through, the my email, the dude awake 42 at Gmail, dude awake 42 at Gmail, all lowercase, all one thing, the dude awake 42 at Gmail. Give me a buzz. So pretty much everyone who's gotten a hold of me has done it when they were in the throngs of desperation, when they were miserable, when they were, just their life, they wanted to kill themselves, right? And I basically talked them off the cliff, and got them inside the window, and we talked, and they've gotten a hold of their life, right? Now, our society, our culture, our civilization seems inevitably wanting to kill itself, between what we're doing to the environment, the food we eat, the air we breathe, the water we drink, how we treat each other, right? Now, before I do anything, try to attempt to do my best to be in conscious intent. I am. Om. Conscious intent. I am. Om. Conscious intent. I am. Om. By being conscious aware. I am. Om. Conscious aware. I am. Om. Conscious conscious aware I am. And when you do that, when you're consciously aware I am, you're bringing in the Creator's unconditional love into you. Right? And that can bring that intent of unconditional love into everything you do. And when you involve God's unconditional love through Jesus Christ's unconditional forgiveness, that gives you access, gives you leverage, gives you a purchase to be at home, to be at balance, to be at one with yourself. And the piece of the novel I'm working on now is Miss Katz's. Do I have it up there now? But it's about this amazing Swiss Spanish Asian woman I knew. And she was a pirate. And she was brilliant. And she was a movie star and a Ford model. And she had her own trust, so she never had to worry about money. And she basically went to the Caribbean, got herself a sailboat, sailed around, and started being a pirate. Not stealing things, but she was Han Solo. She was bringing things from here to there. And she got into a fight on a port of call, and someone went at her with a bailing hook, right? And she won the fight, but she got a scar from one side, from up here all the way down across her cheek, right to her sinus, and took it, got the eyeball, right? And so they kind of cleaned it up, and it didn't, she didn't really hurt her, except she could only see out of one eye. And she went for having the scar and the open socket. I mean, she had a glass thing that she would put in there, but it still had a big thing, and she could pop that sucker out of her head, just by blinking. And she had a little cup with a lid that she'd pop it in there, put a thing on it. Then she had this big cat's eye marble about the same size, and she would throw it on the ground and go, "Oh, there goes my eye." And she would laugh because people would throw up and stuff. So we were a great team, a great match. And we lived in Tortola. And like I said, she never had to worry about money. And she always had a big role because she was always moving things from here to there. And not like drugs or anything, but she'd go to one island that had a lot of bananas. She would take those bananas over to the island that had a lot of peaches but no bananas, right? And she would, get some cash and some peaches and something else, and then take it over to someplace else. I mean, that was her biz, right? She also had lobster pots, and we also used to go raking for oysters and going after prawn and going after the big round things. And we would bring them to different islands that had super duper fancy restaurants. And she made, we would spend 2 or 3. She was amazing catching fish. She would just, right? She'd hook my thing and I'd throw it in there. She would get 10, I would get 0, right? After she would get 30, 40 really big, nice fish that she could sell for like 10, 15, 20 bucks a piece, and a lot of prawn and oysters. And what are those things called? I forgot what you call them, but they're really yummy. And she would go to, one of, whatever island we were near. She would go right up on their port of call, and the chef would come down, and she would also have veggies and fruits, and they would be super duper fresh. We would hit the farmers in the afternoons and put it. But she had a big sailboat, but she also had a lobster boat, which is almost like as big as a tugboat, and the whole front is flat with a big crane, so you can pick up these lobster pots and stack them up, right? And she had a bunch, but she'd use that mostly to take freight. With that big crane, she would not, have. Well, if you had a small, um, you know, trailer, or whatever they call those things that they stack up on big ships. She would take those too, but mostly off-sized crates that were more expensive to take on. She was somebody who would get it there on time and on budget. She never had an excuse. She would never, oh, I couldn't do it. She always did. And that was, why people really liked her, right? And her name was Katz, Katrina, right? She called herself Katz. I called her Pussy. Because that's what I like best about her. I mean, no, that's not what I like best about her, but she had a really sweet one. And I was always there for her, and I was her diplomat and lawyer. I mean, she was a better part. Her daddy was a banker lawyer in Switzerland, so she knew admiralty. That's really where I learned about admiralty law. And big guy who talks about it on YouTube. I like him, two dark journalists. And Daniel is a DJ. His channel is quite good, and he has got Joseph P. Farrell, Catherine Austin Fitz, the guy who really knows all about COG, continuation of government, and this other guy, whatever his name is, he'll pop into my mind, but he's a big guy, and he's all about admiralty law, right? And he really has it down about how you're a slave and how you need to, basically how things worked out. We have an amazing vow. We actually have trusts in our name as citizens of countries. That's why the modern industrial well-to-do countries have healthcare and housing and transportation and good food, because they take that money and instead of giving tax write-offs to the uber rich, they take care of the people. I mean, that's what Muammar Gaddafi did in Libya. And that's why they killed him, because he was no longer taking U.S. dollars for his oil. He was taking gold Krugerrands. Right? So anyway, that's the story. And no one is saying anything. No one's even there. Well, it is a nice day. How much juice do we have? We got about 20 minutes. Anybody there? So this is this is my neighbor, and he lives about 20 miles from my house. Yeah, my truck it's his vehicle, and he's one of 3 people who lend me their Peter, the cat. Look at the cat. The cat is. So they have about 50 cats, and they have no vermin whatsoever, right? And they have a farm, and so you'd expect to have lots of rats and snakes and things. But these cats, no baby, they don't even. I mean, they give them food, but these guys have fed themselves so well. The cats, I'm saying. So, what's home to you? What is home to you? Right? What's knocking around? So, processed food. But not all processed foods are made the same. This is way better than cookies and cupcakes and sugary, marshmallowy, delicious cereals. And all that stuff is marketed to children so they will die younger. Probably as cannon fodder. And there are over 20 wars and fascist nation states oppressing their people all across America. And today people are going, oh, democracy's on the wane, you know, nationalism, fascism is coming on strong. Again, we have been in since Mesopotamia, we have been in a nationalist fascist world order. And all that's happening now is because the markets we have been out into the galaxies. We have been doing Star Trek since Star Trek. Since 1947, the end of World War II, why we had the National Security Act, why we had the CIA, the NSA, NASA, FAA, all of those entities are to control. Right? And to maximize the profit of the corporate state. So we don't have capitalism, we have fascism. We don't have socialism, we have fascism. We don't have communism, we have fascism. Capitalism is when capital controls the means of production, right? The corporation. Communism, allegedly, is when the order of the people control the means of production, and the assets are spread, the wealth, the profit is spread amongst the people. That never happened. Never, 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 never. Now we have a thing called social democracy like Sweden, Denmark, France, Italy, all those countries in the EU. But they basically, each of those countries have their own flavor of it, right, culturally. But it's still, the state controls the means of production and divvies out socially. There's a social safety net. So whereas in the United States, everyone has to swim for themselves, and that's why we have over 140 million people in America living in poverty of one sort or another. You know, either dire, where starving to death, eating processed food, being obese, or you are really starving to death because you can't even give out processed food, and you're living not even in a tent underneath a cul-de-sac, right? And there are more people living that way than you can imagine. Any affluent city, Asheville, right? When I lived there between 91 and 98, there was roughly 60,000 people there. Maybe 150 if you were like looking from Hendersonville to Waynesville to Asheville to Weaverville up to Marshall. There's maybe 200,000 people there. Now there's 500,000 people. Interstate 40 and I-26 cross right through downtown Asheville. 1 million cars drive through Asheville. Last time I was there was last spring. And what was beautiful about Asheville was that it was a city that was built in the 20s by the Astors and Biltmores, who were the Gilded Age folk, right? So everything was that kind of really sweet state of order, right? And then they went bankrupt in the Great Depression, and didn't get out of it until 96. And like the minute they did, paid off their debt, the bankers came in and bought up everything and built like crazy. And now, I mean, I used to live downtown Asheville, where you could fall asleep on the street, right? And like in the middle of Broadway, and nobody would run you over because there was nobody there. Now, there's hundreds of people who live on the street in downtown Asheville. It's like, I was there and I'm driving around. Every time I stop at a stop sign or, a light, there are 5, 6, tents on the corners like mushrooms, and people are out there, with their signs, and they're living right there. And because Asheville is such a liberal city, you know what liberal means? You feel guilty about being racist. You feel guilty about being misogynist. You feel guilty about being a class above everyone else. But do you do anything to change it? No. You just wring your hands and say, oh, that's too bad. That's called liberal sympathy. And what is that? Oh, that's too bad. Now, oh, I'm in a rush. Get out of my way. There is no empathy. I go to my churches, and all those people are nice. I go to 3 different churches that really represent different worldviews. You have the Ku Klux Klan Southern Baptist, very nice people. That's my main church, the one I really enjoy those people the most. The next one is the Methodist I Own Everything Church, and everyone comes dressed up. I mean, they actually complained on how I looked, right? I went in with these pants. Can you see them? Now, they don't look at the braces on my legs and the canes that I have to use to walk. They say, you shouldn't dress like that. Don't you have any better clothes? I go, no. They kind of, and so I don't go there as much. And then there's the Catholics, who are basically pagan, and they're very judgmental. Right? Very, very, very. They have a Vatican worldview. Right? And the Vatican and the city of Rome and the Pentagon in DC, the District of Columbia, rule the world. Right? They rule it. Now, they aren't the rulers. They are the bureaucrats and the minion that are below on the pyramids. They're on that 6th, 7th layer. The president, the legislatures. The president's on probably about the 10th layer, from not even the top. And then the senators, congressmen, they're maybe 5 layers below the president. Then you have the bureaucrats. They're about 100 layers below, the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court and all the legislatures and all the representatives, and all the people who run the bureaucracies are stone cold, take money, bought off. And so that's the issue. How can you, as a citizen, be satisfied with genocide in your name and slavery on your front door? And there's a reason that no one's there on this show, because no one really wants to hear this. Because I'm asking you to become of a dialogue here. No one leaves, you leave flattering comments, which I always love, but I really want to have a dialogue with you guys. I want this to be a community, that we could build something that could, in your own little neighborhoods, your own little towns, your own little cities, your your own states and the rest of the world to bring forth something that is meaningful, right? Something that, and this is a small country road that when I first got to know these guys a few years ago, there was never any traffic on it, right? And the county road that you hear over there, which is about a mile away, the fact that you can hear that means there's a ton of traffic on that road, right? When I first got here almost 25 years ago, um, there was no traffic on that road. Occasionally, a farmer or someone who lives around here would be on it, and they would just putt along, so you wouldn't even hear them. But these people are speeding on that road because they don't know this road. This road weaves through a sawtooth mountain range, and it goes up and down and around lakes, and there are about 10 different spots that just this year, what is it? 5 months, January, February, March, April, May, yeah, 5 months. 120 people have died on that road. And between I got here in '03 and 2019, only 80 people died on that road. And now this year, 120 something or more have died. And way more, 300 or 400 have had really, the power goes out at least once a month, if not 3 times a month, because someone takes a corner too sharp and hits a pole, and they have, not only do they have the power on it, but they tacked on fiber optic lines, a ton of them, so the rich people could have super duper internet out here in the middle of nowhere, which was paid for by a federal grant, which was supposed to give broadband to the poverty stricken farmers out here, and for me, a guy who's really poverty stricken, if I want that brought in, it's right there. For them to take it right from there into my little shack would cost $600. But if I were to just spend 100 grand on a lot in one of the new gated communities that the mafia have built to launder their ill-gotten gains, and they want to make this the new Lake Tahoe of the East Coast. I mean, they really are. That's what they're doing, right? And they're buying up big plots, and they're places that had restaurants and really nice businesses along the lake, and they bought them all, the properties, then rented them out to people who had a good business model. They had restaurants in other places. They expanded to being right on the lake, and they were making lots of money because a lot more people have moved in here, and every single one of them had burnt up. And they're all owned by the same LLC that is in Maryland and disappears once you go to a shell down in the Caribbean, right? It's some nation's, little piggy bank or individuals. Anyway, but that's going on everywhere. And it's in your little town, I'm sure it's going on, right? And in your little town, I'm sure you have a lot of issues of like potholes, and the water is killing you, and you can't get the internet, and trees are falling down on your houses, and the insurance you thought covered it but doesn't, because your insurance won't really cover anything. So come on, guys. Nobody wants to say anything. Let's see, how long have we been on here? 34 minutes. And how much time do we have left? More than an hour. So I don't know if you like it, what I'm saying. Give me some thumbs up. I know that most of you guys watch this after. You don't watch it live. I mean, subscribe, hit that bell so you're notified. I'm pretty sure the algorithm, every time someone hits a notification and says, yeah, tell me when he's on, and I can't. I'm not like you know, dark journalist. I don't have a studio. I don't have a staff. I can't have a schedule. I don't have anything. I live on $400 a month, but I live very comfortably. I live like a millionaire on $400. And and I did that for a purpose because I can't spend money. I really don't have a disposable income. And if something like my car, I'm not going to be. I'm very blessed to have friends who lend me their vehicles, but they're all beaters. They all barely work. So anyway, uh, that's the story. And let's see. Is anyone there? There's one person there. Is that you, AI, or is that two people? Yeah, two folks. Anybody got anything to say? We're talking now here 36 minutes and 14 seconds. Now I could like play the news and make comments about it, but it's all the same, you know. The information is right there. We live in an information age, the internet, the Google, search engines. They really do a good job. I don't really get on the internet more than, I don't know, 40, maybe 6 hours to 10 hours a week, if that, maybe a little more, a little less. So I got to look at, see who's writing me on the internet, which is mostly spam. I'm reading my threads that people send me and doing some of my own research on things, and then coming on and talking to you about stuff. But, I mean, look at this world. It's a beautiful world, and we're doing our best to really look how blue that sky is, right? That's a as natural a sky, but you know the light is in such an angle that and you don't and those are puffy clouds, so they're not really, but they are. It rained last, from about where this historically is a rainforest. That's why we've got this gigantic lake, and man, it is as full as I've ever seen it, and I don't know why they're not letting it out. I mean, the last big rain we had, they drained it all the way down to the bottom. And I guess the rich people complain because their new marinas for their new gated communities basically, they drained it out that much because, it's a gigantic lake, and they flooded out a sawtooth mountain range. And so the lake goes all around these mountains, all over the place. So some places it's semi-deep, where it was the valley, and then there, it's flooding out edges of mountain, ridges. So when it's filled up, hey, there's the lake. But that mountain ridge that's flooded is about 200 feet above where the where the dam is, where the big lake is, right? So they can lower it down to where it's semi full by the dam, and it will dry bed all of these things. And when no one lived on that lake up there, because it had been, the access was through national forest, so you couldn't get to it except by boat. Well, somebody paid somebody something where that there were easements then, and roads were, but just roads straight to these gated communities where they had these big $1 million houses right on the lake, right? And so, and they did, most TVA laws make you have your house about 200 feet from the lake, if not further. And these guys put their things right frigging on the lake. So the septic system is basically in the lake, right? And then, when we had a lot of rain between end of February and end of March, middle of April, we had about 100 inches or more, and so they really drained it down, and basically all those people, their boats were sitting on rocks. They were screaming bloody murder. So now that we had in the last 2 weeks, we probably had 40 inches of rain, and it's above, down. It's not going over roads because roads are above the lake by a good 200 feet, like the TVA rule, right? And so these houses, the water is like creeping up. They wanted to be right on the water. Well, they sure are now. And this one, I don't know what inlet, cove, whatever. They built about 40 houses on it, really big ones, right? And they look like they're being used, mostly for Airbnb, and they're like hotels. They have 10. I looked at a couple of them when they were being built. They had 10, 20 bedrooms with bathrooms each, right? And 2 or 3 kitchens. And it was, not just for somebody's big, I mean, yes, somebody's big house, but it's being used to make money. So that's why this whole area is dying very quickly, because it's extraordinarily sensitive and diverse, and the biome depends on all. So that's why my little part of the deep green is so lush and healthy, because I cleared it all out so a lot of sun could get into it. I put down real good drainage so nothing gets waterlogged, and I put a lot of indigenous medicinal plants, bloodroot, golden seal, a whole bunch of others, and they create this magnificent biome. So I have tons of, um, butterfly bushes to bring. I just covered in butterflies and insects. I have tons of birds. I don't put out any millet or anything because they eat all the insects, and I want them to, because then the insects don't eat me, right? And I have owls that take, and cats. I got some, little mountain cats and panthers that go after everybody. They leave the bunnies alone, and the bunnies mow my lawn. So, the butterfly family, the bunny family, the feline family, the avian family, and so this spring they really have been there big time, and it's been just, you can hear it right now. And these guys have loads of feeders out, so they get their share of birds. But I just let my birds go after the bugs. They do a great job. I got some bats too that go after the bugs at night. So anyway, somebody said something. Let's see. Here's what they say when you visit in the west of Myrtle Beach. Acres of preserved in the town. Yep. Well, people love to believe they don't want to overstand. To understand mean everything's above you and you're just catching the ship. Overstanding is you're viewing everything from a mountaintop. So um, that's how I try to. How I tell stories, and I do it for a reason, because it people basically, respond to my stories and my talking in a physical way. I look at their body language, right? Because they don't know what to say, right? Yes, Purple is one of my teachers, Adam Purple. Go see if you can Google Adam Purple. Well, it's a little bit of light. I mean, this is really a deep purple navy blue, right? And I used to be part of the crew of the dog. I was at Papa Smurf, and that at the end of my career as a consultant, basically people would point to me and who's that guy? They would say, "Oh, he's our Papa Smurf." Yep. So Adam Purple is an interesting guy. He grew up just at the end of World War II, and he got into the mix. And he was a merchant mariner, was a captain. He also was in the U.S. Navy as a commander, and was in the Pacific and took Liberty ships all over the place. And he could have stayed that for the rest of his life, but he got out and he got a lot of medals. He had a lot of. He was white. He was male. He had a lot of gravitas, and so he got to go to lots of school. I met him at NYU, right at Washington Square, where Fifth Avenue dead ends into Washington Square at NYU. And in that park, they have a fountain in the middle, and around that, they have these concrete chess tables with concrete chairs, about 20 to 50 of them. And Adam Purple used to play college professors and people who thought they were hot stuff um, chess masters, and he would play 5 or 6 people at a time using the clock. Right? And he would beat them every time, and he would do it under. He said, "It's not that I'm not gonna, who's gonna win? I'll always win, but I will bet you I will win at such a time, and that you will take 20, 30, and if you take, you know, 30, 40, 50 times more time than I take, and I beat you within that parameter, where that's, the bet is I'm going to beat you in so many moves, but the doubling of the bet or tripling of the bet is by how much time you take more than I do, right?" And I was a young photographer in that. I was about 14, 15, and so um, I had my dad's Hasselblad. I mean, he got it from the army. I don't know where he got it, but he used to have his own photographer when he was in the army. And then when he no longer was wearing the uniform, he was out there in the corporate world. They didn't document things too much. They didn't want anybody to know what they were doing. So, when he would do stuff, he would take me along, and I would take pictures of him doing that stuff. Right. So anyway, I had my own little Hasselblad, and I was taking pictures of the pretty girls at NYU. But I was watching. I was just amazed at this guy who wasn't really tall. He wasn't really heavy. He was wearing shorts, purple t-shirt, purple shoes, had a purple bike, and with a big purple basket on front. And it was like a delivery bike, and old school delivery bike. And I was watching him, and anyway, he not only he was playing 5 games at once, and he always beat everyone, right? And I would come and watch him, and I met him then, and I was going to prep school, so I wasn't always in New York, right? And and I was when I was in New York, I was working for Grandpa Stahl most of the time, and and I kind of wasn't in that part of. I was over in the Lower East Side. I was down in Tribeca, way down, like near Pearl Street. Those were places that we would fix up for realtors, and those realtors would say, "Hey, listen, I'm redoing this place, and I need a janitor or a fix-it man. So I'll give you this place to live in." And so I started living in lofts, and I started living in lofts for free. I mean, I would change the light bulbs in a hallway, sweep them out, do stuff like that, and maybe do a little bit of fixing. But I mostly would just call my friends who were either plumbers or this or that, have them do it, and then bill them. I'm a good chess player. So games, but another level. Yeah. So and I knew how to play chess, and Adam always tried to teach me because, well, you're one of the smartest people I know, kid. But I didn't have. You have to have a real competitive nature, and I don't. I couldn't care less who wins or loses. I just don't want to see anyone suffer. That's my shtick. Right? So anyway, but Adam, he always won, but he had a total honorable spirit about himself that he, you know, wouldn't, he had his parameters. He's the guy who taught me about having guideposts, right? So I have those. So, Jamie, tell me about your neighborhood and who the people who are your friends, your community, and are you doing anything within your community to help your community to become stronger as self-sustaining? Right? Because I have an idea where you live, and that's a pretty lush biorome itself. Its bio diversity is pretty strong. So it's a healthy environment that you live in. I mean, you're not living near any railroads or coal mines or power plants or any of the such or highways. But Ireland has so changed. The last time I was there, living there, was '84, just before the Maastricht Treaty was sold and Ireland joined the EU. And then I went back in 2005. These people with a lot of money wanted me to go there as they were scared to go to Ireland. They thought the IRA was going to get them. I said, well, that's over. But I went there and they were scared to drive on the wrong side of the road, right? And they knew I knew the place really well and I still had friends there. But boy, it had so changed. Germans had come in and put shopping centers everywhere in Ireland. Tipperary and downtown was like, what is this place? Same with Galway. Galway's like, and that they what they did to Dublin, to Connolly Street, and what's the street that's like the Avenue of Heroes, right in front of the post office where the Revolution was fought, where all the oak trees were, where the English hung everybody. They cut all those trees down and widened it and put all this EU kind of art, stainless steel spears that are just another version of an obelisk, a penis of industry. I'm, my attention span, I'm better at checkers than chess. And my mom, now, on the other hand, I think I got rid of my killer instinct because I just watched my mother. She was like, a triple Capricorn. Wow. With Aries, everything else in Aries. Woo. No one ever got out alive. So I know that Jamie's there. Anybody else? Who's the other guy? Is that AI? AI, get a hold of Elon Musk. I want to be Elon Musk's Charles Dickens for X. I could do a good job. I mean, I have this ex-ratted publishing media firm, Griot Publishing, and I'd sell it to him cheap, just a couple hundred mil, and I'd be his guidepost. And like I said, it's Charles Dickens. And I would be my writing style is a cross between James Dickens and Charles Dickens and James, what's his name, who wrote the Dubliners, James Joyce. So I'm Charles Dickens, James Joyce on acid. What's it say? Police love checkers. So my mom, right? So when my sisters had kids, my mom would obligatory try to like be grandma, and she couldn't do it. And because they would say, "Oh, let's play a game," and so she'd go into their closet and she'd pull out Chinese checkers, and she would cheat all the time. So she would win. She always had to win, whatever the game was. She had to win. So she could count cards. So they wanted to play life or some other game, and she go, no, let's play cards. Let's play. I'll teach you how to play poker. Let's. How about 21? And she would kill him. So. Please. I can't read that. I don't have my glasses. Pursue Sterlet. I don't know. Anyway, what else can I tell you? So the lifestyle. I mean, New York was always my town because I could always just cruise in there, get a gig, make a nice fistful of dollars, and go someplace else. Right? I did that for almost 20 years. And I could always find the next neighborhood. And I like before Tribeca was Tribeca, that's triangle below Canal Street. And I lived on Thomas Street. I lived on Reed and Duane. I lived on Duane Park at Mohawk Electric Building. That was, go Google Mohawk Electric Building. That was Tesla's laboratory. It's right on Duane Park. It's where Hudson Street starts, and Hudson Street goes all the way up and then becomes 8th Avenue. O'Connell Street. Yeah. So, when I went back and saw in 05 what they did to Dublin, it was like I said, what they did to Tipperary, which was a cute little, county seat, and then it was like Germantown. I mean, not, but just all these German businesses, supermarkets. They had all these supermarkets, and the German people were going nuts because they had all this high technology in their supermarkets that the Irish folk didn't really have a grasp of. But once they did, I mean, the Irish are great with technology once they figure it out, right? But the Germans, you got to go by the book, and the Irish not so much. So, I did a lot of gardening yesterday, so every muscle in my body is sore. But I took this nice hot shower at my buddy's house. Like I said, I've been taking a shower since one I took here in February. So anyway, I think how long have I, it's almost been an hour. There's only 2 of you there. Any deep thoughts you want to set me down, Jamie, before I say goodnight? Say goodnight, Lucy. Mickey. Anyway, what do you think? Jamie, what's home to you? Piano Man. What's his name? The Long Island boy. He was a great songwriter. that album, Piano Man, had some of his best. Billy Joel, that's it. He had that song, Tale of Billy the Kid. But he had a song about home is wherever you are, meaning about his the girlfriend he was singing about. That was his home. And I've always had that. So I've been very blessed to have great women in my life. And they were always my home. But once it's not your home, you can't go home to that home again. Right? And so I had 5 wives, one that was on the paper, Donna Ann, and then my twin flame, and then Stephanie, and then, you know, Jane Fire, and who else? Christine Barton, the smartest human on the planet. And who else? And they were all truly amazing women, all unbelievable human beings. Right? And I was blessed to have them in my life, and they were my home for the time that I was with them. And I pretty much learned early on that you only have the moment with the ones you love at that moment, and it can be taken away like that. I've lost over 50 people who I truly loved during the AIDS thing. So I built a lot of gay and, you know, oh, the gay clubs where the guys dress up like movie stars and singers and do shows. I forgot what they call those. I built a lot of those. So I got to know a lot of the gay community in New York. And they were great fun. They were great people. They're generous, large hearted, good folk. And they had a great community until it got wiped out by AIDS. And it wasn't by, gay sex. No. It was mostly by intravenous blood. A lot of people had blood diseases and they got intravenous blood. And there was a company in France that their blood bank got tainted and they knew it. And they knew what it would do, but no one knew what AIDS was. And they did because they were dealing with blood. So they isolated HIV and they were the first people to put together a cocktail. But they wait until the whole world got infected and then started selling the cocktail. And they had the next generation of the best thing to the point to where, there's a population of about 15 million people around the world that stay alive, but if they don't get that pill, they're dead, right? In the worst of ways. And there were a lot of people who I was the last, I sat by their side and held their hand as they died because I knew I was working in hospitals. I worked at Johns Hopkins. I was a hospital electrician, and CAT scans were just coming in, and I was, installing those things. So I got to know imaging equipment quite well, and so I was around it. And Johns Hopkins and Rockefeller Medical Institute in New York, and Roosevelt Hospital, and a few others uptown. And so, um, and I would come into those wards and I would make people laugh. I would come with funny hats on and crazy wigs and, just be me and do Reiki on them and do, you know, foot massage because your feet are the gateway to your nervous system. And I can't find anyone who wants to learn. I mean, I used to teach it so people would massage my feet. I would massage there, and then and nobody wants to learn any of this stuff, right? Nobody wants to learn herbology. Nobody wants to learn anything. That I went to school to be an osteopath. And when I tell doctors that, they feel threatened. Anyway, Or AZT. Yep. Yep. Yeah. Read the commandments. Right. But Jesus came to save our souls. He died on the cross, so we wouldn't have to. Part of the problem with the Ten Commandments was then everyone just went by the letter of the law, not the spirit of it, right? And that's why they had Pharisees. They were the lawyers of the Torah. That's why they had that little block of wood on their head, so they can reach, right on top of the thing, so they're, it's a you can't touch the sacred document, but they can get that close. That block of wood keeps them from touching, and they look at every letter and they parse it out. So it's how we do preachers. Oh, we're getting down there, and an hour and 5 minutes. So about 10 minutes. The three of you. Anybody got some good questions? I know some serious things, but we'll never tell. Yep, pretty much. So I tell stories, and the people who have dead, maybe I'll mention their names. And even if they're alive, I'll mention their names. They love hearing it. But not many people seem to care. They want to stay in their own little silo and define, and pretty much how people have always defined their belief. They don't have faith, they have belief because they can monetize it. Put your glasses on, you're reading wrong. Yep, that's true. I'm just squinting away. Yep, there they are. Okay. Okay, I got my glasses on now. What am I? Let's see. I know some serious names, but will never tell. Dear Baba, by his grace. Yep, put your glasses on. Fauci, yeah, that boy. Yep. It was so evident, when everything is so evident. It's like in plain sight. You can't miss it. But nobody wants to see it. Don't, like Donald Trump. I mean, that's why I love Donald Trump, because he lies so much, he tells the truth. I mean, he is 100% who he is. Whereas Jojo, he's been in the Senate for 60 years. He knows how to play the game. He is Machiavelli's Machiavelli. And so he is doing worse stuff for the planet and us and everybody else, and especially the innocents. Just look at the Gaza. And he's so, going on about how Donnie's, because, Jojo's going to do the same things. It doesn't matter who gets in. They're going to build a Gaza strip along the southern border and put 30 million people in there as slaves. And if you say anything wrong or do anything wrong, it's going to be like The Handmaid's Tale. But let's see, put your glasses on. Here, brother, but you misread. Let's see. I guess we have to go back a little further. Avatar. Yes, most people have no clue who is love personified. Yep. You're looking well. Yep. Because it's not so much the organ of my bag here. It's my faith in love's co-creation that makes me look so charming. Yep. We'll do later. Purple. I'm a good chess player. Message. So I didn't get to read the messages you retracted. O'Connell Street. Yep. My godfather was J.P. Morgan. Ooh, lived on Park Avenue. Very cool pad. Yep. Quarter block, and he was a gentleman. I mean, pretty much everyone is a gentleman. Well, not J.P. Morgan. He was scary dude. So, did you spend any time at your grandpa's? Was it your grandpa? Yeah, no, grandfather, my godfather. Did you spend any time in his pad in New York? Because that's a very interesting neighborhood. Because um, Park Avenue. Because if you go one block to the east, um, you hit Lexington Avenue, which is truly a magical street. It because when in the '60s anyway, '60s and '70s, I don't know what they've done to it now, but it had all these old Dutch buildings, and that's where Madame Olga Kluver, Billy Kluver's um, cousin, who was like 1,000 years older than he was, um, had this curiosity shop, and it was just full of ancient, um, you know, antediluvian books and artifacts. Like, oh, there was a TV show about the librarians, and another one about you know Vault 17, where all the mystery stuff is kept. And the end of uh, you know what's his name, Indiana Jones, the first movie. They're rolling the artifact. They put it in a box, spray paint a big long number and roll it into a big warehouse, right? And you see all these other crates. So this amazing, artifact is in one box, and there's millions of boxes all stacked up there. I mean, that's what it is. And that warehouse isn't owned by the government. It's owned by some corporate entity, right? Because that's who really rules. All the super duper technology is owned by Lockheed and Raytheon and other entities you don't hear too much about, uh, like Bell Aerospace. It's 19 to 1980. So if you walk up, and Lexington is like Fifth Avenue. Fifth Avenue ends in Washington Park, and Lexington dead ends in Gramercy Park around 16th Street. There's the Gramercy Park Hotel was where Salvatore Dali rolled the piano out of the bar, and that's kind of what started his name to fame. So anyway, what else can I say? Uh, it's a beautiful day. Olga Kluver. Yep. And she, you know what she looked like in the Star Wars movies, where the last, you know, three movies with the girl, um, the Last Jedi, um, and she gets taken off the sandy beach um, by the two wild and crazy guys, and they end up meeting the Wookiee and San Holo, um, carrying dinosaurs, and they go run around a bit on that, and then they end up in this kind of, you know, deep green with a castle that's like a nightclub. It's another version of that that barroom scene. And the lady running it is this like little short, like Yoda, big head, gigantic glasses. That exactly was Madame Ogleklou. That's exactly what she looked like. She had gigantic glasses. She was about 4'10", and she looked out. She looked like from another dimension. See, it's always good to have people like that, Jamie. My whole life, I have had people who picked me out of the fire, right, and said, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, whoa," and dusted the flames off, and said, "Boy, that was interesting, wasn't it? What'd you learn from that, kid?" And I had, a good 20 of those votes. And that's why I made it to about 27 when I said, okay. And I started doing that for other folk, right? And I had my 128. I said, when I was taking over abandoned buildings and putting homeless people, and not just me, there were 8 of us, and then we made it into an institution. And that's why 500 people got to own their own apartment in New York City, which gave them, um, you know, gravitas to earn money. Because the only way you earn money, wealth comes from owning property. And so these were buildings in Alphabet City, Lower East Side, um, you know, um, Red Hook, South Bronx, Brownsville, uh, and places over near PS1. And we housed 500 families, and we had our own credit union because no bank. All these properties were red lines. There were no banks. There were no restaurants. There were no supermarkets. There were no nothing. No buses even went there, right? So we had to do all that stuff ourselves, and we built what a friend of mine would say is a what's he call it? He's got a name for it. Not a garden community. Well, my other friend, we started a thing called uh, community cultivators. We were cultivating community, right? And that worked really good. But nobody. We set up a great system. We started. We our few first events. We in this in Roanoke, Virginia. The county always had a jobs fair. No one got a job. We went and got 100 jobs. Put those people who wanted those employees there on the street in the neighborhood where these people were, and we had a little, some food, some entertainment, and about 100 people who wanted to hire, and we got 200 people a job like that, right? And I got everyone's, I kept a demographic flow of everything, and I kept an eye on everybody, and all those people who got jobs kept their job. They just didn't show up there for the first one. "Oh, I don't like it." They worked and worked themselves up into it. And I couldn't get. There were about 100, not 100, in the poor black neighborhood, because the poor black neighborhood isn't just black people; it's pretty much everybody. They just call it where the black people live, but it's where poor people live, and it's where the train tracks are. So everyone, the level of cancer was higher than any place else. Thank you, Northern Southern, right? And he took me up to Twin Towers in 1980. I think he knew something back then. Looking back, yes. I mean, if you went up one of the towers where the tourists went up, because every floor was an acre big. That roof was an acre big, and they had this extended tower. The elevator went up to this like little blockhouse with windows all around, and then you could walk out this you know parameter that was like 20 feet above the roof of the building, and you felt like you were walking on air. It was, and did you go to Windows on the World? I basically lit that place, and it was owned by Restaurants Associates, and the guy who owned it, I was his can do dude, meaning whenever he had a restaurant that wasn't working or things broke, I would go and fix it, take care of it. I would often manage his failing units back into health, and he was a great employer, meaning I would just show up on Friday, he'd have an envelope, we'd smoke something, we'd drink something nice, and then he had his own private dining um, alcove above all of the rich people down below, right? He walked out of his office, and he had this corner office that saw down, out into the Atlantic, right? And New Jersey was over there, the Atlantic was over there, and he had these great telescopes that you could see. And during the oil embargo, he had his super duper military binoculars put on tripods. To go over there, just look, don't touch anything, just look through it. And out there, as far as you could see, were gigantic oil tankers. There was no embargo. They were just keeping the tankers just offshore and not filling up the tanks. Yeah, I know. But I do what I can do, and I am a servant of love's co-creation. See, that's what most people don't realize. Your life isn't yours; it's the we and me. And if you're not serving the we, you're having. I mean, John's a good example of that. He does do nothing but, and he is stuck in it. See, he is stuck in that. He realizes that he has to break out of his restrictions, but he can't. All he can do is praise God, praise Jesus, which is fine. But we don't even know who God and Jesus are. And if you are a scholar of any sorts, you definitely have a good idea that the Bible is like the Torah. The Bible, the Old Testament is the Torah, right? And there are other scripts that influence King James also. And so it is a Rubik's cube of information, and you have to open your heart to God's unconditional love to be able to see it. And then you have to put on the glasses of Jesus' unconditional forgiveness. Now, whether Jesus exists or as that character in the um, you know script of the New Testament, um, or God as the playwright of the Old Testament, it's irrelevant, right? Because we're anthropomorphizing those deities, and it's like having idols, and that's why the Baptists have nothing on their walls. They have no decorations, but they still, by having nothing, they're idolizing nothing, right? It's like they just don't understand. And so our poor saint of suffering, John Birmingham, he just say, I mean, that's a mile away. That is these long line of orthodontists who drive their Harley Davidsons up and down that road and have these catastrophic accidents. So that wasn't one bike, that was probably 30. Like walking on air. So, and I worked as an apprentice electrician on the World Trade Center. So I was very intimate with the building of that building. And the building was held up by the exoskeleton. We called it the bird cage. And each of the floors of that building were an acre big, right? And they had no columns. All the floors were supported by the exoskeleton. And each floor was 4 foot thick of 10 mats of rebar that were 4 inches thick, right? And they had this aircraft wire pulled through it. So they would, and we had this first they would, the kind of roof you see on a big box store, the corrugated metal, right? We called it the deck. They would weld that on to the exoskeleton, put down a corrugated step so you could work on it, right? And so you'd put down, you know, a layer of that matting, and then they had this kind of, again, this kind of very thin I-beam stuff that was about 6 inches um, wide, and they put that down, and we put our pipes, our electric pipes, our water pipes, our septic lines, and then they would, and the mats were semi-porous, so when they would pour the floor, so we would build everything like a tonka, and it would be 4 foot thick, and they crawl through it and all that kind of stuff, and then they would squeeze those cables, and they would pour this super duper strong concrete that had um, metal and plastic fibers in it that strung themselves together as a concrete set, and they poured that 4 foot pour, and they had these jiggly things, so there were no abscesses in it, and they took X-rays of everything. They had this machine that went on a gliding thing up and down, looking at how the pore and everything looked. If anything was awry, they would kind of move it, be able to get at it. And then once everything was perfect, they'd let it set. And as soon as it set to a certain, and it kept letting the tension on those cables, and those cables were like that thick, and they were like aircraft cable that you hold up a suspension bridge for. And they would let that up, and that thing would be this contiguous, solid, 4 foot thick concrete with this, 6 layers of this rebar with this metal steel in it, and all this pipe and wire cables and you name it. So to think that those floors pancaked down was no, because those floors were intricately, each one of those layers of 2 inch rebar was welded to the congruous bird cage, right? That's what, and the more stress you had on the floor, the stronger it made the floor and the building. So each of those buildings fell faster than gravity. I mean, if you had put a bowling ball on top of that antenna, and the buildings fell straight down, and those videos that you can't see anymore, they don't have them on YouTube. I'm sure there's some place, but the ones that they showed over and over and over and over again for about 2 months of the buildings water falling down. And what it was, those buildings were worthless because nobody wanted to be in them because there were tons of other buildings. And the building was made, it was at the height of the contracting thing of concrete and asbestos. And it was a building that couldn't burn. So to say that, an airplane that couldn't, a 767, which is an aluminum thermos, with jet engines on it, it's as light as it can be because it flies at almost 600 miles an hour at 30,000 feet, where the air is very thin, right? And when it's flying, closer to the ground, like those planes were coming at the World Trade Centers, they were clocked at 500 miles an hour, which is an impossibility because the friction on those wings would have ripped the wings off, right? And there's all kind of gizmos in that airplane that won't let it fly that fast, that low to the ground. So something's rotten in Denmark, right? And so if those aircraft hit that exoskeleton, it was designed so two 707s hitting the building at the same time could not penetrate the birdcage. And a 707 is built like a tank compared to a 767, 757. They're just an aluminum thermos, right? How are we doing for juice? We're getting close to the end here. We only have 10%. Holographic planes, exactement, right? So, and the buildings were basically hit with a direct energy weapon that basically changed the molecular structure of the building. So it went from a contiguous thing of steel and concrete to dust. And that's what you saw in those videos. Those buildings virtually turned to dust. And they fell down because they were being brought down by this energy thing pushing it down faster than gravity. So if you had put a bowling ball on top of the TV antenna, that bowling ball would have hit. And both those buildings went straight into the um, basement of the buildings, down into the train tracks of Penn Central, and the PATH trains and all the subway lines went right through those buildings. And for that to occur, that was against gravity. I mean, that was against physics because they fell faster than gravity. Meaning, if you had put a bowling ball up on that antenna, it would have hit the pile of dust a minute and a half later. Right? And those floors, 4 foot thick, contiguously connected to the exoskeleton, they wouldn't have just kept falling down. Boom, 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 boom. Something would have fallen on top of it, boom, and stopped. Right, and that weight going down made the floors stronger against the exoskeleton. Yeah, Dr. Judy Wood. She Yep. She describes it. She was part of architects and engineers for 9/11 truth. So all that stuff is right there on the internet. Does and our Congress, they weren't even, Georgie Porgy and Dickey were not going to have an investigation. Oh, we all saw what happened. Everyone knows Al Qaeda did it. Um, you know, so and they didn't. But the people who died there, their families were so enraged. It's very similar to the people in Israel who are upset about their families still being kept hostage. We've already had a holographic invasion of aliens, but it's going mainstream and live. I would bet you we have a you know what was that movie Independence Day? We're going to have that scenario play out maybe this 4th of July. Maybe I would give it a 60-40 chance that it would happen. Oh. So yeah, uh, you got to ease into hard work. You can't just do it all at once. Oh, my back is killing me. Anyway, and I sleep on a plywood platform. But see, all of these things, I planned and did because it's kind of, it's like, I'm brought up a Roman Catholic, and we used to have Ash Wednesdays, and we used to have that thing before Easter where we would give up something, Lent. The Muslims have it in Ramadan. Same kind of, basically Muslims are just Christians on steroids. I'd love to see some Christians pray, intently like Muslims do. How are we doing on the Jews? Well, we got to go in a few minutes. So we've already had the holographic invasion. Never mind. So, and we're already, Solar Warden is already out there in the galaxies. We've had Tesla defined and discovered and built an industrial exhibition of 0 point energy and wireless transmission of electricity. Why everyone's going so gaga for electric cars is that very soon we won't have batteries. That's why we didn't have the first automobile ever made was an electric car. And the thing that stopped it from being economically feasible was the battery, right? And also, Mr. Rockefeller wanted to do something with this oil he had. It wasn't just for the lamps anymore. Because, like, the biggest moneymaker was oil from whales for lamps. And then within 6 weeks, it died because kerosene took over. Cheaper, easier. You weren't killing mammals. Anyway, but no one seemed to care about that. We've been killing mammals forever. Like, look what we did to the buffalo. We did that so we could basically kill the Indians because that was their basic protein source. So anyway, hour and 33 minutes. Oh, and 33 seconds. This is a good time to go. I love you all. Let's end with a prayer. Father, hear our prayer. And our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. And forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. As was in the beginning, is now, ever shall be. Amen. Conscious intent I am. Conscious awareness I am. Om.